Welcome to The Explainer. I am so genuinely thrilled you're joining us today because we are going to unpack a mystery that is just absolutely captivating. Seriously, it beautifully bridges historical genius, spiritual numerology, and modern cognitive psychology. If you've spent literally any time looking into goal setting, personal development, or even just scrolling through manifestation trends online recently, you've undoubtedly stumbled across the numbers 3, 6, and 9. People are swearing by this sequence, claiming it's completely transformed their lives, their careers, and their mindsets. But what do these digits actually mean? And where did all of this even come from? Well, today, we are going to deeply explore the very real mystery behind Tesla's 369. Together, we'll uncover how a profound mathematical obsession, belonging to one of history's absolute greatest inventors, somehow evolved into a massive global phenomenon.
Okay, let's dive into this with the man himself. Consider this famous and incredibly mysterious quote that pretty much launched the entire modern 369 movement, Nikola Tesla. We know him as the brilliant Serbian-American inventor behind the alternating current system, the Tesla coil, and basically the foundational technology for remote controls. The guy was a man of unparalleled intellect, yet he was notoriously fascinated by these three specific digits. He didn't just see them as simple numbers to count with, no, he saw them as a fundamental blueprint of reality. He famously stated, if you only knew the magnificence of the 3, 6, and 9, then you would have the key to the universe. He actually took this obsession to extremes in his personal life, allegedly doing mundane daily tasks in sets of 3, and even refusing to stay in hotel rooms if the room number wasn't divisible by 3. It's wild, right? Why did a man of such rigorous science lean so heavily into this specific sequence?
Well, part of the answer lies in a mathematical concept called vortex mathematics, which deeply captivated Tesla. He had this working theory linking the inherent power of these numbers to the physical laws of the universe itself. For example, he relentlessly studied the geometry of circles. Think about it. A full circle has 360 degrees. If you take those digits and add them up, 3 plus 6 plus 0, you get 9. He discovered that no matter how many times you divide a circle, the resulting digits will always without fail add up to a 3, a 6, or a 9. Let's do the math. Half of 360 is 180, right? 1 plus 8 is 9. Half of 180 is 90, and 9 plus 0 is 9. You can keep going, and the pattern always holds. To Tesla, these weren't just quirky, random coincidences to be ignored. He believed they were the hidden mathematical constants of nature.
So, let's break these digits down to see how they eventually evolved way beyond pure mathematics. As our sources highlight, this mathematical intrigue was picked up by spiritual thinkers and philosophers. They decoded these specific numbers into what they consider a master activation code for the human experience. Here's how they see it. The number 3 represents creation, self-expression, and a direct intuitive link to the divine or your higher self. The number 6 signifies harmony, balance, and the inner strength we possess to overcome obstacles. And finally, the number 9 symbolizes completion, deep wisdom, and the necessary release of negativity so you can actually move forward. When you combine them into 369, spiritual communities view this as the ultimate number of alignment. It's like a direct bridge connecting your internal, unseen thoughts with your physical, tangible reality.
And this brilliantly illustrates the two totally different yet equally fascinating ways our sources view the 369 method today. On one side of the coin, you have the deeply spiritual perspective. This views 369 as a cosmic activation code. It's essentially seen as a message from the universe, confirming that you're currently in a powerful, aligned phase to manifest your truest desires. But on the exact opposite side, we have a very practical, psychological perspective. This frames 369 purely as a cognitive goal-setting tool. It's a grounded, deliberate method used to bridge that frustrating gap between just wishing for something to happen and actually achieving it through structured, relentless focus. But you know what is truly remarkable? Regardless of which philosophy you lean toward, the actual daily practice looks incredibly similar.
So how do you actually execute this? Let's walk through the classic 369 journaling routine. This method was popularized by taking Tesla's numerical obsession and merging it with modern affirmation practices. First things first, you have to choose one single, incredibly clear desire. The focus absolutely must be singular. Then you write it down following a strict daily schedule. Picture this. In the morning, right as you wake up and your mind is fresh, you write your desire exactly 3 times. This clearly sets your intention for the day. Later on, maybe right at your desk during your lunch break, you write that exact same desire 6 times to amplify your focus while you're right in the thick of your day.
Finally, right before you go to sleep, you write it 9 times to set it in stone within your subconscious, and you commit to doing this every single day.
But here's where the rules of the practice get really specific and honestly slightly unusual. When you're writing this desire out, the primary recommendation across the literature is that your statement should take exactly 17 seconds to read or write. That usually equates to about 2 carefully crafted sentences. But I want you to ask yourself, why exactly 17 seconds? I mean, of all the numbers in the world, it feels like a completely random number just pulled out of thin air, doesn't it?
Well, this fascinating detail actually comes directly from the teachings of Abraham Hicks, which serve as the foundation for a whole lot of modern manifestation practices. According to this specific rule, it takes the human brain exactly 17 seconds to create the critical energy of a purely focused thought. Think about it for a second. Think about how incredibly hard it is to hold one single pure thought, like a feeling of immense joy, unbridled abundance, or deep love, for 17 undistracted seconds without your mind wandering off to what you're having for dinner or those emails you desperately need to reply to. If you can actually maintain that focus for 17 seconds, your brain supposedly starts to create more of that specific energy, perfectly aligning your mindset with what you are claiming. Oh, and as a very fun side note from one of our sources, mathematically 1 plus 7 equals 8. But if you subtract 1 from 7, you get 6. I bet Tesla would probably appreciate the quirky math hidden in there. Now, fortunately, if the idea of carrying a physical journal around everywhere and writing sentences 18 times a day sounds completely exhausting to you, there's a very popular alternative interpretation. You don't actually have to use the classic pen and paper method to get the benefits. Another highly popular version involves utilizing the technology we already carry with us by setting alarms on your phone. Here's how it works. You pick 3 specific, clear desires. You then set 6 distinct alarms spaced evenly throughout your day. Whenever an alarm goes off, no matter where you are, you just take a quiet moment to mentally repeat each of those desires 9 times. It applies the exact same 3-6-9 numerical structure and focus, but it's seamlessly adapted for a busy, on-the-go digital lifestyle. In fact, people have organically adapted this practice to fit their own personal learning styles and daily lives in quite a few creative ways. For instance, there's the visualization method. Here, instead of writing, you focus heavily on picturing the vivid end result in your mind's eye for 30 to 60 seconds while you practice your repetitions. Then there's scripting, which is a more intensive approach where you write a full, detailed paragraph describing your new reality in the morning, a slightly shorter paragraph in the afternoon, and just the core sentence at night. There's also the speaking method for auditory learners who prefer to boldly say their affirmations out loud, maybe during their morning commute. And finally, adding gratitude. This is where, right after 3, 6, and 9 repetitions, you actively list 3 things you are already grateful for. This one is absolutely crucial because it keeps your mindset anchored in present abundance, rather than feeling a sense of lack regarding what you're trying to achieve. Which brings us to a truly fascinating crossroads in this explainer. Looking at all these dedicated journaling habits, the phone alarms, and the intense mental focus, we have to pause and ask a critical question. Is this all just mystical magic? Or is it actually grounded in hard cognitive science? Like, can writing something down in multiples of 3 truly rewrite the trajectory of your reality? Let's take off our spiritual hats for a moment, put on our scientific ones, and look at the actual psychology happening inside your head when you do this. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the reticular activating system, or RAS. It perfectly explains the real-world mechanics behind manifestation. The RAS is a very real biological network of neurons located right at the base of your brainstem. Its primary job is to act as a bouncer or a biological filter for your brain. Every single second of your life, you're bombarded by millions of bits of sensory information. If your brain tried to process all of it, you would literally short-circuit. So the RAS filters out the noise and only lets in what it deems strictly important to you. Have you ever bought a red car and suddenly you see that exact red car everywhere on the highway? Yeah, that's your RAS at work. By repeating your 369 affirmations multiple times a day, you are literally, physically reprogramming your RAS. You're repeatedly telling your brain, this specific goal is my absolute top priority. Suddenly your brain starts noticing resources, conversations, and real-world pathways to your goals that were actually always there, but that your filter previously just ignored. Let's see how this builds into a psychological progression that completely validates the 369 method scientifically. Step 1 is intention setting. Writing a goal down takes a hazy, vague dream floating around in your head and forces you to articulate it into a clear, actionable target. Step 2 is positive affirmation. By stating it repeatedly in the present tense, day after day, you actually reprogram your brain's internal belief system to accept that the goal is entirely possible. This vastly boosts your own self-efficacy. Step 3 is spotting opportunities. With your RAS now fully primed and your self-belief elevated, you subconsciously start changing your daily behaviors. You start acting on those small opportunities that eventually compound into monumental success. It's not a magic wand being waved over your life. It is highly focused, intentional psychological conditioning.
But to truly understand this topic, we need to be completely impartial and look at the entire picture. Our psychological sources provide a very necessary reality check to balance out the hype. Now, the documented positives of this method are fantastic. We're talking increased daily focus, much higher self-efficacy, and a massive boost in general optimism. However, researchers strictly warn that there are documented pitfalls. A powerful belief in manifestation can sometimes lead to what psychologists call magical thinking, which is the dangerous assumption that simply thinking about or writing down a goal is enough. This causes people to completely strip the actual required hard work away from their goal setting. Studies even show that people who become overly reliant on manifestation without action are more drawn to risky financial investments. Statistically, they're actually more likely to experience bankruptcy, all because they assume their success is guaranteed without doing any of the practical, tedious planning.
So, to avoid those pitfalls, execution and immense patience are absolutely key. You still have to do the work. And speaking of patience, we arrive at the number 33. Across almost all the literature and source material on this topic, 33 days is the most widely recommended duration for practicing the 369 method. Notice the beautifully full circle math here again. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 plus 3 is 6. It's everywhere. The sources stress that most people naturally quit new habits after just 7 to 10 days because they don't see immediate magic. Committing to a full 33 days pushes you past that barrier and builds the necessary long-term consistency required to actually rewire those neural pathways in your brain that we just talked about.
So the crucial point is, if you're going to dedicate 33 whole days to this, you need to construct your daily practice correctly so you aren't just wasting your time. Let's look at the absolute best practices drawn from all our sources. First, you must use the present tense. Saying I am or I have works infinitely better than I will, simply because I will implies to your brain that you are still in a state of lacking it. Second, be highly, ruthlessly specific. Vague, muddy desires will only ever yield vague, muddy results. Third, you must feel the emotion while you write it. Emotion is the real fuel of this practice. Use rich, sensory words like joy, freedom, or peace to trick your brain into physically feeling the accomplishment right now. And finally, let go of the how. Focus entirely on the beautiful end result you want and stop stressing over the mechanical, day-to-day logistics of how the universe or your brain is going to make it happen.
We've explored the historical, brilliant genius of Nikola Tesla, the deep spiritual significance humans have assigned to numbers, and the hard, undeniable science of the brain's biological filtering system. It is a truly fascinating intersection where human belief meets human biology. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Whether you deeply believe the 369 method is a cosmic master code meant to unlock the hidden secrets of the universe, or you view it simply as a brilliant, practical cognitive hack to keep your brain sharply focused on your ambitions, what will you choose to focus on for your next 17 seconds? Thank you so much for joining me today to explore this mystery, and I highly encourage you to take that 17 seconds for yourself right now.